Welcome back to episode 10, Lawrence. Double digits we haven't gotten canceled yet. Welcome back to Leap Into Business, the official podcast of the School of Business here at Lehman College. And don't forget, our School of Business here at Lehman is the only school of business at a public institution of higher education in the Bronx or Westchester. Lawrence, you want to bring in our guest for today?
I do. I do want to add something to that, what you just said, Sean.
Lawrence, come on.
No. I want to say something. So
Okay.
last week I was at a retreat, and Rich Relkin had told me to say that we have to change our intro a little bit and add the word amazing.
Amazing,
to the only public institution, an amazing institution.
Okay, so I'm workshop that for next time?
Okay. For season 2, we got to
Season 2.
Season 2.
Coming soon, by the way.
All right. I'm thrilled to have Lauren Andersen in the building. Lauren is the University Associate Provost of Careers and Industry Partnerships. She was formerly Executive Director of the New York City Tech Talent Pipeline, and we'll get into that as well. She launched the $24 million CUNY 2X Tech Initiative, doubling the number of tech bachelor's degrees awarded across CUNY and improving employment rates for computer science graduates. She's led the Tech in Resident Corps, which I love and have a lot of experience working with folks in that shop, and she's brought in people from top companies like Google, LinkedIn, Salesforce, you name it. They've been in our classrooms around CUNY and some even in Lehman. She was a previous policy advisor in the White House, Office of Science and Technology, focusing on STEM participation and serving as a liaison to the White House Council on Women and Girls during the Obama administration. She is educated at Northeastern University, and she has a master's in public administration from Columbia University. We're happy to have you.
I should have worn a tie. Jeez. I feel underdressed, Lauren. Thank you for being here.
You're good, Sean. I'm telling you, you're good. Lauren, thanks for coming in. We are happy to have you.
It is my pleasure to be here. I always look for any excuse to come to Lehman, as your colleagues know. But it is a delight to be here and talking about all things business and industry engagement.
Absolutely. And I usually jump right into this. Talk to us about how did your education get you here?
Sure. So I am a fourth generation New York City, resident. And my whole family are all a bunch of public servants, many of whom went to CUNY. So my grandmother was the first woman to graduate with a master's degree from Hunter in education. Okay. My aunt went to Hunter back when it was here. At campus. My mom went to CCNY. And so obviously there was a lot of pressure to become an educator when I was growing up, but I decided that I actually wanted to make horror films.
Oh, this is new information.
This is right. That was not on the bio.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is not.
So I went to Northwestern. I love Northeastern, but actually
I'm sorry.
in Chicago.
I was thinking about Dean. Because Dean went to Northeastern, and I'm thinking about her, but yes, Northwestern, I'm sorry.
We get that a lot, I'm sure. But I went to Northwestern to study how to make horror films. That's really why I wanted to go to school. And my family, rather than totally rolling their eyes at me, was very supportive and really appreciated the fact that education that was focused on creativity and the arts, they saw the value of that no matter the job prospects for a horror film director. And, I learned so much being a film major, things that would surprise people, like when you're trying to explain to someone what the image is in your mind to try to get them to actually execute that requires such a high degree of communication, the ability to explain what you're aiming at and looking for, the ability to deliver criticism in a positive way to get where you're trying to go, because as any folks who are in the arts know, it's hard when your vision isn't exactly executed the way you see it. And teamwork. It takes a lot to get people to make a film. You have a lot of different people, a lot of different roles working together. So I learned so much from my film degree that I wouldn't change for anything in the world. But when I graduated, I realized that my film degree didn't teach me anything about how to actually be in the film business, how to support yourself, how to get a job, how to hustle. And back then, New York City didn't have a lot of film and TV opportunities like it does today. But during school, I had made a point of staying involved in clubs that I really cared about. So I worked in the College Democrats when I was in school. And that opened up doors once I was out of college to opportunities I never would have thought I was qualified for or I could have the opportunity to do. And it clearly paid off in my career. I've had a lot of incredible opportunities. But a lot of those things are grounded in the skills I learned as a film major and the fact that I kept the things that I was passionate about part of my education.
Right. I love that.
That's super interesting, Lauren, right? Because here at Lehman, right, we always try to encourage our students to obviously go to class, do well in those, but to also do activities outside of the classroom, be it corporate visits, talking to corporate partners that are here, industry partners, and so having that extra context really, I think, hammers home that point. And as somebody who's been sort of at the intersection of academia and industry for a while, how has that sort of changed how you want to, or how rather you would like to see things get aligned from a industry and higher ed sort of partnership track, right? Because they're both businesses ultimately, but higher education and private industry are also quite different. So how has your background influenced how you sort of view these partnerships?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, one of the reasons that I love my job and my career has been so rewarding is you have people who come from very different places, but who have the same goal. Their goal is to make sure that students have the knowledge and insight that they need in order to be successful in launching what futures they want. Whether you're an employer, you're a faculty member, you're a student yourself, that's what we are all here for and we all want. And so it's been, I think remembering that everyone shares a common goal has been very helpful, because then when you come to the table, what it's really about is listening and listening carefully to how to translate the fact we're both going towards the same goal, but potentially from different perspectives, and trying to find sort of the common ground. What I will say is that the places where that alignment has been easiest and most rewarding is the place where there's an ongoing relationship. This doesn't just happen overnight. It takes a lot of effort and relationship building to come to common understanding about what students might need to know when they leave the doors of higher ed, and frankly, how to build core foundational skills and strengths and critical thinking that is sometimes hard for industry to impart.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of listening and a lot of opportunities to just remember a shared goal and then build ongoing partnerships that will help students to achieve that.
Right. And just really quickly before I jump to the next thing, do you feel like sometimes you are setting up short-term relationships versus long-term relationships, and long-term, like, I'm sure just in our work that we do, right, is that, okay, this is for the moment, like this will help us build momentum to get to the long term? Do you ever feel yourself in that situation?
So I think we are really lucky here in New York City, because a lot of the companies that are in New York, it's not the easiest place to make it here.
Really?
No,
believe it or not.
Sean, I'm
Shocking
still,
news here, everybody.
I'm still struggling, Sean. I'm just telling
You and
you.
me both.
I mean, if only the trains ran on time.
Right.
They do. They're actually great. But, businesses are here in New York because they believe in New York, and either they've grown up here or they've come here because it's an incredible place to be. And because of that, a lot of our industry partners are reaching out in their own backyard, not just because they know that Lehman is an amazing place to come to find incredible students, but also because they believe in what those relationships do for New York. So, long way of answering your question. I think that more often than not, we're really lucky to be doing this work because we have partners who see their partnership as something more inherently. That said, building a partnership with industry when you're a higher education institution, particularly when you're a university system that's 175 years old, you got to learn to move a little bit more quickly than we historically have moved. And so, yes, there are some short-term, seemingly transactional things that we do to demonstrate that we're in this together and can move quickly to help our students connect to industry more. But the hope is that that is not the expectation. That's the beginning.
That's the beginning.
Of something.
Got it. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that oftentimes we can move like an ocean liner, and then when you lead into my next question, and then we're dealing with folks like Google, LinkedIn, and Salesforce, I'm sure they move a little bit more like a speedboat. And so I'm always interested about building trust and that sustainable partnership with these major organizations, and how does that happen? How does trust come to the table?
Yeah, I think a big piece of trust, whether you're doing this work or any other kind of work, is transparency. Like helping your partners understand why you are at the table, what your intent is, how you think it will be beneficial for everyone in the long run, but also being pretty clear about this thing we're going to do that's small and fast is going to be something that requires a lot of capacity, requires a lot of people thinking together. And the systems we have for doing this regularly on a repeated basis, we're just growing them. We're just building this muscle.
Right.
I think there is a necessity to be somewhat transparent about that. Right. And likewise, you know, with those partners that you mentioned, we have a long, ongoing relationship because in addition to being transparent about what we could do, we've also been, you know, a helpful, I think, second brain for them in terms of what they might be doing that makes it hard to build relationships.
Right.
Like, for instance, you know, when you think about the challenges of partnering with industry, some industry partners in a couple of corporate sectors start recruiting for interns sophomore year for like a year and a half later, and helping them understand that while their peers and competitors are all moving that way, they actually are missing out on so much talent who it hasn't even occurred to them that that's what they want to do yet because they're just starting out their school. So, of course, we build trust with our industry partners by saying we recognize that challenge. We want to do more for our students to help them understand earlier how to get onto those on-ramps, but also helping them understand, you know, not all of our students start in September. Like elite Ivy institutions. Some of them start in January, some start in the summer, and that doesn't mean they're any less talented, but it means they're not on the same schedule that you think they are.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
no,
that trust helps.
That makes a lot of sense. So I've known you for a while, right? I think since I landed at Lehman, since I got into this industry, I've known you. Now your film background it's all starting to make sense.
The
now.
horror part in particular.
Well, this part is that I think you understand. You're one of the people that understand that every campus has its own culture. Like every campus is a little bit different. The way the students move, the way faculty, everybody's a little bit different. And so I wonder, as you're in these negotiations and you're behind the scenes, how do you address the different needs for students? Like, and so if you are talking to a specific college that is on Lexington Avenue, that may be a little bit different than talking to somebody on Bedford Park. So how do you know, how does that stuff get done behind the scenes when people are, when you know the different cultures in that, to your point about just we have different timetables, how does that work?
So I think I will say first, just to table set, one of the things that I'm not sure was in my bio is that I did work on the industry side of the house for a long time and learned some really interesting stuff. But at the end of the day, I am here in higher ed because students are at the heart of why any of us are here. We want to see them succeed, and what they need to succeed is the thing we really want to advocate for. Students across CUNY campuses are incredible and resilient, and they are the best advocates for why companies should turn to those campuses. But sometimes it's hard for that connection to be bridged and for students to have the opportunity to speak to employers, and for employers to understand why it is really essential that they look beyond Manhattan for talent that they might be needing and looking for. And so, you know, the first thing that is essential is, again, like listening and understanding for each unique campus, what are the students telling you they need? And really not only talking to administrators, but trying to get a sense of, have students expressed what kinds of support on their own campus might be useful to them, what is currently there, what's not, and frankly, creating opportunities for not only us in our office to tell employers what those needs are, but for them to hear it directly from students. I think we have a lot of businesses, both and also public sector entities here, who really want to see students across the 5 boroughs in corners of the city that haven't always had access to these opportunities have them. And in addition to sharing information on what that needs to look like, actually having them interact with students is the best way. And, you know, I think when that happens, employers understand, it's, you know, this person was 5 minutes late and this person was 5 minutes late because they have to come an hour and a half on the train, and that doesn't mean they're any less talented. And so I think that that sort of firsthand exposure and information really helps those negotiations. And then at the end of the day, just making sure that our students understand why there are some things that employers are on a fixed schedule for. Like a recruiter can't change the fact that their business has told them their deadline is X. So making sure the students have that information too.
No, that's good stuff.
So it kind of strikes me, Lauren, that in almost every single comment so far, one sort of core theme in there has been how important it is to have those open channels to talk, to interact, and to learn. And Lawrence, every single guest on the podcast so far has always either directly or indirectly come sort of back to that, either from a institutional point of view or an individual point of view, how important it is, right? Even in the age of AI, everything, right? Automating everything to have that sort of, person-to-person
interaction.
Interaction. And so on that, do you have any sort of alternative benchmarks or metrics for how you personally measure how well these partnerships are going outside of sort of the rather obvious ones like, hiring and all the rest? Are there any other benchmarks that you have on your personal dashboard?
Sure. So obviously, at the end of the day, student satisfaction, are they able to pursue the future that they want to pursue, is the North Star. And hearing back from students that feedback about they were able to connect to where they wanted to go or they weren't, and that's good feedback for us to know, is really essential. But, having one of my first jobs be in the federal government has ruined me forever, and now I'm an institutional policy wonk. And so, it's one thing to say, I helped this one person achieve their dream. That's incredible. And if any of us do that, it is a good day. But really the thing that I also measure success by is how are the schools themselves, how are our institutions ourselves preparing ourselves to do this not just for one student, but for every student in the long run. And some of those things are super hard to articulate. Like when you have a faculty member who is now excited to welcome industry in and have them be lecturers or have them be teaching through the practitioners and residence corps, that is a change that isn't noted anywhere, that faculty member is really excited and collaborating. But that is a change that's going to last every year that faculty teaches. And so things like that are really hard to traditionally measure, but should be celebrated with confetti and streamers and all of that. Those are the stories that actually makes my heart sing.
Right. And those are stories of that's where sustainability starts, right? And I know I tease Lauren sometimes because I feel like her middle name is sustainability. Every time I talk to her, we're talking about something. It's like, okay, Lawrence, how is this gonna last? How when we pull back and we can't fund anymore, how does this machine continue to go, this apparatus? So I think that's what you're talking about. It starts that kind of flywheel that you get for sustainability. Yeah. Good stuff.
And ultimately, culture breeds all of those outcomes that are more measurable over time. Right, to your point, it's a marathon. Right, building these partnerships, creating these environments that then do ultimately have our students getting to where they want to go.
Yep.
But obviously, right, in the workplace, be it in industry, academia, anywhere, right, it isn't always going to be positive, right? And there are going to be obstacles, and obviously our students, have all kinds of backgrounds, and so have all kinds of external things that can, in turn, create obstacles. So is there any one sort of challenge or obstacle you faced that sort of helped you develop into your, current version in terms of your outlook on things? And then, two, is there any piece of advice you would give to our students or our graduates to help them sort of navigate those obstacles that are going to come up?
Yeah, absolutely. There is this sort of I'm thinking back on all of the many, I wouldn't say challenges so much as maybe not so informed moves that I made when I was younger that didn't help my career advance, or disappointments where I thought something was going to go one way then another. I think the thing to underscore, and the exact example I'll use, is a demonstration of that never goes away. Like even as you get more advanced in your career, you're going to continue to meet challenges. And things are not always going to go the way that you anticipate them. And I will say that, coming to CUNY, this is a dream job. Anyone who has the job of helping students succeed in their future is a lucky person. But coming to higher ed from the public sector, I thought I knew what we were doing, and I had a long career in a lot of really exciting places to be able to build on and had some expertise. Walk into higher ed, and it is a different ballgame than public policy, and different in ways that at first were very intimidating, but now are it's super strengths. For instance, when you work for a mayor, when you work for the president, they say something and everyone does it. That's the
that's it.
Yep, that is the direction that everyone is heading. Here in higher ed, it's amazing and incredible because there's such a respect for consensus building in other people's opinions and bringing along a community with you. Peter Nwosu is the person who opened my eyes to the adage, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yep.
Higher ed really is going far. Like, it's a lasting institution that's been around for centuries, and it is folks respecting each other's opinions and working forward. That was like something to get used to when I started. Not that I don't respect people, I love listening to people, but like it takes a lot of folks on the same page to move something forward that will last. And that led to some early steps of me realizing, ooh, that is not going to work here. That's actually going to go backwards. So I think one of the things is being quick to recognize when you don't know everything. That is really important. And listening to the people around you to really understand the environment that you're in and what success is defined as and how things get done is super critical. And then I think the other absolutely essential thing is you can't be afraid of failure because it is going to happen. And the question is, do you want to fail trying to do really exciting big things? Or do you want to fail being safe? And as someone who has failed my fair share of times, I would recommend do it because you learn so much from the challenges and from the obstacles as well as the successes.
I also find Lauren that oftentimes students and even people, period, is when we talk about failure, they want to fail strategically, right? And so I think that's part of being safe a little bit, right? But how do you get away from that? Like, like if I fail here, then maybe my next career I can't do X, Y, and Z. Is your approach that you're just going and you're just trying to make the difference for, like, how is that your approach to that?
Yeah, so in general, my rule of thumb is do hard things with smart people. And the big things.
You want to say that again, Sean, for the podcast?
Yeah. Right there at the camera, say it again. That's the takeaway.
Do hard things with smart people. Like, look for those opportunities. Because, it's really critical that you don't shy away from things that are challenging, even if you think there's a high chance of failure. The other thing is there's a way to fail that is not only strategic but deliberate. So, like, are you looking back as soon as something happens that's not what you expected and doing sort of an immediate analysis of, like, why did that happen? What were the inputs that I was assuming that I shouldn't assume next time? And being rather methodical about that reflection, because even if you failed something, like, for instance, early failure, I thought I was going to be a foreign service officer. Actually, after I worked in the White House, I wanted to go abroad and I applied for a fellowship, and I didn't get it. And I was like, been in the White House.
Barack.
I mean,
like,
how much more do you to get here?
Like, who do I got to call like, why do I not have this?
Yeah, but it turns out there are a million ways to go abroad, and there are a million ways to represent your country. And there are also a million things that I wanted to do that I realized weren't that, because when I went back and analyzed it, I realized, you know what, my answer to that wasn't so compelling, and it's because I don't really feel like this is where I want to go. I feel like this other direction is what I want to do. So even if the failure is in a line that you want, the trajectory is actually much bigger. And if you are deliberate about analyzing your failure, you see that there's actually a broader landscape where you might be able to continue along a path that you want if that's what you want.
Yeah. Sounds like and some quick self-reflection on what is happening, what's going on, why did I fail, what do I really want? Yeah, I think that's good for students to know.
I think that way of analyzing failure is a very practical one too, Lauren, right? Because obviously all students are always motivated. They want to go to school, do the club thing, take the classes, pass the classes, do the internships, get the job. But ultimately, I mean, obstacles are going to happen and failures are going to happen. So having that sort of self-awareness to analyze sort of why it happened and then, well, it happened, but is a really excellent, I think, business skill for our students.
Yeah. The journey is important.
Yeah, the journey is important. Yeah,
absolutely.
And obviously, your role and your sort of current outlook is all about teams, right? And trying to get people to collaborate and to work together and to listen. But for a current graduate or current student who's just getting out into the workforce, are there any best practices for how to do that if you aren't somebody who has a background like yours, like working at the White House, and all that? as a graduate or as somebody new in the workforce, are there any best practices or tips to help students sort of get that team headset underway?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different things. No matter where you're going to go, you're going to join an environment that has a goal. And step one is really trying to understand what that goal is. And that doesn't even have to do with your teammates. That really has to do with like you understanding what it is you need to know to understand where that group of people is trying to go.
Right.
That's step one. And step two is, again, admit you don't know everything and really try to ask questions about what that goal is and how you might be able to move in a direction. Because if you don't have an understanding of where the team is trying to go, then you might attempt to be a teammate that actually is not necessarily moving the whole team in the direction it needs to head. So step one is understand what the goal of a team is. I think step two, as we've been talking about a lot, is listening. And listening not just to hear but to understand what people are saying is what is needed in the moment. There is also, when I worked at the White House, we had everyone who was hired, they were told this is an all hands on deck team. Like there are going to be days when you're going to be helping your peer rather than advancing your own portfolio.
Right.
And that all hands on deck approach, I have been so lucky to work on only teams that have that willingness to recognize that it's about something greater than just their own role on the team. I think understanding that early is really essential. And having that orientation, I think, means that you're not only going to become and be seen as someone who's really good at X thing, but someone who sees the whole picture and can help the organization that you want to be and anticipate what's coming next, not just the
What's
one
happening
piece.
now.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
That and maybe try to come up with a mascot
A
to keep everyone
The
motivated.
mascot, now we're talking.
Did you guys have a mascot in the White House? Did you have your own little?
We didn't have a mascot in the White House, but Halloween at our office at CUNY, we all dressed up as what we think the mascot of our team is.
Oh, really?
It was fantastic.
Did Chancellor dress up as well?
No, this was just our Office of
just
Careers
your
and
own.
Industry
Okay.
Partnerships team, but
We
we
gotta
have
get some of those photos then.
they do exist. But we might have some recommendations for the Chancellor next year.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I love it. You've been leading some groundbreaking initiatives at CUNY. I've been part of one or two of those groundbreaking initiatives. And what has been surprising that you discovered in those initiatives? What has been a surprise that maybe you weren't really necessarily like, oh, okay, we're able to do this?
Mm-hmm. So the thing that is challenging about career success that might be surprising to a few but not all people is that there isn't one single thing or a single silver bullet. But there are some things that are helpful. I think that, it is useful to keep in mind that as I've been working more and more with industry throughout the years, it's not just about what you know, but it's about how you can show what you know. And that isn't always about talking or writing, but it's about applying the knowledge that you gained. And sometimes you have the opportunity to apply that knowledge within the role you have. Sometimes you have the opportunity to apply that knowledge just as a side project or something that shows that you're passionate and can incorporate activities. But other times, it's a matter of applying something ahead of your role and understanding that there's a vacuum in some places.
Right.
If you're interested in it, what could you do to demonstrate you could apply knowledge there too? What's the idea you can bring to the table? What's the insight you might want to share? Obviously, knowing when to do that and reading a room to some degree is important. But some of the best advice that I've gotten in my career is definitely to grow into the job you want. Don't wait for someone to offer it to you. Start to get experience in that space.
And you have a phrase like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a dressing phrase like that.
Dressing phrase.
So
like
my
that.
dressing phrase is you dress for the job you want, not the job that you work for. So I'm dressing for a job that I
He's got
eventually.
cufflinks,
I don't
wingtips.
know.
I feel underdressed.
I was going to
always.
say you're dressing to be a CEO. So
Maybe, yeah.
Oh.
I think that's what it is. Dean is in the room, so I'm trying. But yeah, so no, I you have to, for me, for anything that I do, it's the implementation of belief. right? You have to believe in that thing first before you start. I mean, we can have a whole project, and I've done this in my other career where I've met with teams and like we have this whole project, but then I'm looking around the room and like some people's eyebrows are different. Like, I don't think this thing is going to work. And so I been back to my office and like, okay, I got to install this implementation of belief first. So I think once you believe that this can be done, it makes it a little bit easier to actually get a project going. And so I think if our students can understand that you got to believe first that you can be what you want to be, I think it starts there. And the time is you don't pay attention to time. You just don't. You just do the work, and the time will catch up with you. So, yeah.
No, and also, I think Lauren's mentioned now twice the importance of handling your tasks and duties on the everyday, but to also always keep an eye on what's coming next. Right? The next curve, the next hurdle, the next opportunity, and to sort of chart your career and your activities, right? With that sort of half an eye on the future as well.
Yeah, I actually believe. Sorry to cut you off, Sean. I actually believe, and it's an Abraham Lincoln phrase, is that we don't rise.
That's what I was getting at before.
Oh, that's the one that I always say.
Man.
Oh,
that's
when
what I was getting at before.
Oh, it's the Abraham Lincoln
the
quote.
Abraham Lincoln
I'm
one.
sorry.
I didn't know it was Abe though.
We gotta have cues or something.
We gotta have some little cards.
Something happening.
Yeah, we're falling apart.
So I say this often as my Abraham Lincoln quote is that you don't rise to the occasion, you rise with the occasion, because if you rise to the occasion, it implies it already happened. So we find ourselves behind, right? And we're not a kind of institution that has the kind of capital to just quickly catch up and jump to the front of the line. So yeah, so we rise with the occasion. I'm sorry, Sean.
It's all good, Lawrence.
Season 2 will be.
Season 2, we're gonna iron this all out.
We'll be
so and to pivot, right, our conversation. Is there anything that you're passionate about outside of making horror films or watching horror films? But is there anything that you're passionate about outside of work that might surprise people?
Well, recently I have been getting very into making neon signs.
Oh.
Neon signs.
Neon signs.
I gotta hear. I gotta hear about
Yeah.
this, Lauren. I gotta hear.
Old-fashioned neon.
Yes.
It's been around for decades. The glass tubes. With
really?
with the gas inside that you
way.
hook up to electrodes and then it glows a particular color.
That's pretty cool.
You can make those?
I can.
Oh, I
We
got
have to get one to the studio.
Are they beautiful? Ooh, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. That's
So you're putting gas in them, like to hold the glass thing? Or to walk us through this a little bit.
So there are a couple of great places across New York City and beyond that will help neon artists get into it. Like actually they have classes on it. Always be learning. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
So I was dragged into this kicking and screaming by my 78-year-old mother who has always wanted to learn how to do neon, and at 78 was like, we're taking a class. We're going to do neon.
I love it.
So it's incredible because your artistic vision doesn't always match up with what a glass tube will let you do. But there's something about it that is, I spend all of my day talking to people and learning about people and trying to convince people to do different things. And there's something so satisfying about just taking something physical and being able to bend it
And it has to listen to you.
It has to listen to
has to
you.
do what you say.
It has to listen to you. And yet it's very fragile, and there's a real imperceptible way.
Got it.
This is one big metaphor.
Right.
There's an imperceptible way that you have to understand what the grain is of the glass in order to move around.
That's fascinating.
So it's great, but don't do it at home.
I was going
to say,
like,
could I do this in my garage
Yeah,
tonight?
and so you have the gases. This is your mom saying, this is what did she ever tell you, like, this is why I want to do it? Like,
So my mom, we'll try to make this story short.
Okay.
My mom grew up in Kingsbridge, actually.
Right here.
Yeah. And she, her family immigrated from Italy and Russia during the Jewish pogroms, and she grew up Jewish. And, around Christmas time, she would always see other kids putting up Christmas trees, and she always wanted a Christmas tree, even though she was a Jewish kid. And so her over the years, what she really wanted to do was to sort of meld multiple cultures into something that could be a unifying symbol for both of them.
Right.
And for some insane reason, she thinks neon signs are the way to do that.
Well, they do get everybody's attention. I mean, that's
Certainly.
clear.
Yeah.
That's clear that they definitely do that. Interesting story.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, I would have never known. I thought.
No, that was
here-
not the answer that I was
Yeah,
going to expect at all.
When we started, Sean, one of the things I was thinking is like when we get to question 9, Lauren has already kind of answered
Yeah,
that
I know, with the
in
heart.
question 1 with
That's why
the
I
heart.
tried
So I
to
was
sort
like,
of
how
cut
is
that
she
off.
gonna? Yeah, how is she gonna top the director thing? And she
I was
did it.
thinking pickleball or something. But I mean, glass
Also
neon
fine.
signs.
Also fine. A little bit more athletic than I think I'm capable of. But that's okay.
All right, here's the last and final question. I know this is my question that I am trying to get all IP, intellectual property on.
Yep.
So, Lauren, there are 3 metaphorical bones in business. There's your backbone, which is your decision making, your wishbone, which is luck or serendipity, and your funny bone, which is your sense of humor. We know you use all of these bones, but which one of these bones do you find the strongest, more comfortable, and why? And this is my question, Lauren. I got to say this for every podcast because Sean
He
is.
always does, he always
Well,
does
because
this.
here's the issue,
Well,
right?
Lawrence
This
always
is
asks it, and he feels that he has to like take ownership.
I had to take ownership
During
of
the
it.
podcast, in front of our guests, we have to
in
come from
front-
Lawrence.
I know we do, Sean, but I always, because Sean and I go back and forth of like, should you answer the question? And so now it's just like, no, Sean, I got to do 10.
Yep, Lawrence always does 10. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Lauren. But yes.
I think it's a great question.
See? You see what I'm saying?
It really is.
Why does everyone tell you that, man?
And it might be the toughest question on here.
Good. That's some
Because-
feedback, Lawrence.
Yeah, because I want to say that it's my funny bone.
Okay.
Our team laughs a lot, and that
Okay.
really helps us to have perspective on the work we're doing. The work is not always easy. It's certainly rewarding, but laughing helps when you're trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to procure something through the stage. So
We were just talking about that before
Yes.
the podcast.
Yep,
Yes.
yep. So there's certainly that, but I think if you ask my family, they don't like my jokes, so it's probably not my funny bone. I'm surprised that tailbone isn't on here for
Oh.
how often you fail and have to
Oh.
get back up in
Oh.
business.
Oh, we're gonna have to
I
change
got to
the
use
question
that.
then.
Yes.
4
Yeah.
bones
Thank
now.
you. It's going to be 4. I'm sorry. Thank you, Lauren.
So I think that one definitely have used that bone
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot in my career. But if I had to pick one, I would say backbone.
Mm.
No decision occurs in a world in which you have 100% perfect information.
Right.
No work occurs in that world. And
Right.
so life is a series of decisions that you have to
Right.
make. And in order to move things forward, sometimes you have to make decisions that are going to be challenging,
Yep.
or there's a chance it might not play out the way you want.
Right.
But I still think having the impetus and the backbone for however long it will last me since I don't play pickleball, I think that one has been really important.
How has serendipity and luck played in your career? How has that been?
It is huge. I mean, obviously, I started my career at the White House, so luck is. I'm very grateful to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes, though, that folks who don't see themselves in the room figure that they're in the room because of luck. And so though I acknowledge my incredible privilege and so much serendipity being born into the family I was born into at the time I was born into, I think it's. I like to see people recognize that luck sometimes is not the reason for your success.
Right.
It's you, you
Right.
actually
Right.
have
Right.
made what has happened to your path possible. So I appreciate wishbone, luck, and serendipity, but I think I'd go with the others.
I agree with you. I mean, I often say about my own self, my own career, I'm lucky about the people that I meet, but I work my butt off to get where I'm at. But I'm really lucky about the people that I meet.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Definitely.
Yeah, good stuff. I
Well
gotta
said,
add.
Lauren.
I gotta add tailbone.
Got a
to
tailbone now. Got to edit
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta add tailbone.
You
to
can't file the trademark stuff yet.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on with us today. Leap into business. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
This has been the best way to spend a Monday that I've had in so long. Thank you.
Well, your people set it up like this, so I can say that they were very smart. They definitely talking back and forth. They were like, "This is a good day for us." Like, perfect.
Well, that's
Beautiful.
also part of the sense of humor because
Yes.
they're like, on a Monday, haha,
We're
you're
gonna
going to
do-
have to be
Monday
on your
afternoon,
game.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent
But thank
stuff.
you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you again.